My Little Pony is an instantly recognizable Hasbro franchise that's loved by millions. The brand, which now brings in hundreds of millions of dollars, dates all the way back to the 80s when its first pony toys launched, but it had a significantly different customer base back then than it does now in the internet age. The most loyal MLP fans are no longer little girls who like horses, but adult men who like horses in a very different way. It's all because, in 2010, Hasbro launched the 4th generation of this beloved franchise, called My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
My little pony, friendship is magic.
It, of course, featured plenty of merchandise aimed at young girls, but also a television show created by Lauren Faust, the wife of Craig McCracken, the creator of Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Lauren had contributed to her husband's shows in the past, but this was her first show of her own. She was skeptical at first when Hasbro reached out to her because the show could end up being nothing more than a shallow advertisement for their products. But she took the opportunity to try making a genuinely entertaining series for children. The show would end up being an undeniable success, but probably not in the way Hasbro expected it to be. It became a pop culture phenomenon, not just among children, but grown men on 4chan of all places.
Well, I'm wearing purple Twilight Sparkle Horn, the plushes I got at Walmart.
Who knows how they stumbled upon it? The best case scenario is that they were forced to watch the show while babysitting a younger cousin or something. But however they came across it, what matters is they ended up really liking it. The phenomenon started on the comics and cartoons board, and it was mostly ironic, at first anyways. My Little Pony threads would eventually make their way onto other boards, with Anons posting pictures of characters like they would with anime girls. People who weren't into the show got fed up, and pony posters started being banned in February 2011. Moot, the creator of 4chan, and other 4chan mods would start promoting Brony-owned 4chan websites and banning pony posters. These bronies, a term which was coined just 2 weeks after the show first aired, fled across the internet, creating their own websites and invading others with their content. A year after all of these mass bannings, Moot would apologize and create /MLP, a board to contain all pony content. Some users thought it was a honeypot to catch and ban more bronies, but that was not the case. With this board came the creation of Global Rule 15, which states that no pony posting is allowed outside of /MLP, although it was already too late for such a measure, since pony content was now going viral across the internet. The fandom grew large enough to host conventions that brought in significant numbers of attendees. By 2013, BronyCon boasted over 8,000 people. That level of popularity continued to the very end of the show, with its last season airing in 2019, and that same year, the 11th and final BronyCon drew over 10,000 attendees.
Twilight became an alicorn, which is a mix between a Pegasus and a unicorn, and I really felt like the season was over, that we were done, and when they confirmed that we're going to have season 4, I lost it. I was ecstatic.
I told my mom, and she's like, what? Like, I like ponies. And she's like, okay.
But bronies are an inherently divisive species. Most people instinctively find it weird for grown men to have an interest in a show for little girls, especially with a title as unambiguously infantile as Friendship is Magic. Some people are more open-minded towards others' bizarre interests, but that tolerant attitude only goes so far. You see, bronies aren't just peculiar, but in a few cases, they're outright depraved. When the community expanded from the outskirts of 4chan into the mainstream internet, any semblance of irony, if it was ever truly there, was lost. It attracted people who were genuinely into horses, and I do mean into horses. If you scratch the slightest bit below the surface of the brony fandom, you will unearth an astonishing amount of pony pornography. There is even terminology for it. When a brony is masturbating to MLP porn, he is clopping, a reference to how equines have hooves. There is even a Wikipedia page for it, believe it or not. Not to be confused with pawing off or yiffing, which is what furries call it when they're whacking it. On a side note, I just did an MRI and found I have stage 4 brain cancer from learning about these things, so I hope this video really pays off. Even Lauren Faust herself, the show's creator, ventured onto the MLP board on occasion, and had this to say about it. I don't come often, Some unsettling stuff is here, but sometimes I'll put on my armor and come over. I've seen some of the most thoughtful critiques here. You know, unsettling is pretty generous, considering there is not one, not two, but 5 academic studies conducted on those who are a little too into animated ponies, along with multiple journalistic articles documenting the millennial propensity to clop. Today, we'll explore just how deep this rabbit hole of degeneracy goes, the highlights, if you can call it that, of the Brony fandom. Because animation content on YouTube has become so large, making videos criticizing animation YouTube has become a genre in its own right, and even I was a part of it at one point. Whether that's criticizing the animators from the Storytime community themselves, or just making fun of animation reviewers and critics like the mysterious Mr. Enter, or the now retired Digibro, currently known as YGG Studio. In a similar fashion, a fair amount of creators in the Brony fandom got popular reviewing and discussing My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and other pony-related topics, and they were commonly referred to as the Brony analysis community. This is where infamous creator Digibro got his start, where he, now she, was still known as Digibrony MLP.
This episode strongly supports my theory that the ponies are teenagers. You see, I've always been a little bit confused about Rainbow Dash's status as an exceptional flyer.
But she's not the topic of discussion today. The man of the hour is Zach Kays, better known online as Toon Critic Y2K, who is a creator in this scene. Zach created his YouTube channel on May 3rd, 2012, right when the Brony community was skyrocketing in popularity, from a niche 4chan subculture to a full-blown fandom in its own right. Zach's content has pretty much been wiped off the face of the internet, and the story of his career isn't super well documented. The Internet Archive doesn't seem to have much either, so it's hard to find out when he got popular and which of his videos got him the most attention. From the few archives that do exist, we know that in 2014 he had garnered over 3,000 subscribers, and in 2015 he was making $170 per written review or vlog on Patreon. We also know that by 2017 he had 17,000 subscribers, but often struggled to break 1,000 views a video. Now, going by those numbers, it's evident that Zach just didn't achieve the same level of success as creators like I Love Kimpossible a Lot and Josh Scorcher. However, he was well connected with other Brony creators, and apparently he was a part of a big Skype group called the Rift Cafe, which describes itself as a collaborative storyline made up by the Brony analysis community. Basically, a crowdsourced, collaborative, self-insert fanfic. We get some more details about Toon from his page on the Rift Cafe wiki, such as an illustration of his steampunk neckbeard pony Sona, and a description of his edgelord alter ego, Cartoons, which seems exactly like the kind of thing a Brony would find cool. Take this excerpt from the wiki. On one fateful day, Toon chose to create Cartoons for a small joke, but during the showdown against Thunder Blight, Toon was attacked by a beam and Cartoons took a physical form. But this Cartoons was different. He was vicious and attacked people, and he took delight in every second of it. Eventually, Cartoons defeated Toon in a debate and took over his channel. He then proceeded to systematically attack other reviewers, such as Lightning Bliss and Golden Fox, in an attempt to psychologically break them. Apparently, his alter ego, Cartoons, took over his channel from time to time to terrorize others in the Brony analysis community. I gotta say, I appreciate his dedication to the LARP grind. Anyway, because of his involvement in the community and the fact he obtained minor E-fame, known in the Brony fandom as Horse Fame, really creative with that one, guys, he would get to take part in popular group projects, such as a series called TF2 Analysis. It's a strange crossover in which various creators from the community interact with each other in the world of the Valve game Team Fortress 2. But every character is a pony. Apparently, it has an ongoing story and lore, and the first episode somehow has 500,000 views.
1. I am the prettiest unicorn. 2. My mane is lustrous and fragrant and catches the wind perfectly. Therefore, I am going to trot into the forest and pick each and every one of you maggots an arrangement of flowers.
There are over 150 of these animations, with new ones being uploaded to this very day. I have quite literally zero idea what is going on in any of these, but I guess I haven't had my skull crushed by a hydraulic press of children's cartoons sufficiently enough to understand it. Despite the fact that Zach would seem to have the mind of an infant, his behavior towards others was anything but innocent. In a video by YouTuber Vita, he discusses allegations that surfaced of Zach repeatedly groping women at Brony conventions and getting away with it because he had horse fame. I guess this is his version of the Trump grab him by the pussy moment, but without the they let you do it caveat.
The two most noteworthy ones I was around to witness are the time when he groped Kitty's ass at BronyCon in the vendor hall when she was standing right by her boyfriend, likely since he didn't expect her to make a scene in a public location, and when he was dating Kelly, who is asexual and has a great fear of that level of intimacy. Toon tried to coerce her into sending him naked photos anyways and planned on getting her to sleep with him at a future convention. Basically really scummy shit.
It's disturbing that being a mere micro-celebrity in a scene as inane and irrelevant as the Brony fandom can still help you get away with murder off of what little clout you have, but I digress. After these two instances were brought up by Vita, another person testified in the comments to having been groped by him. Most people don't even remember the groping allegations though, because ultimately it was small compared to the heinous nature of other of Zach's misdeeds. In 2018, over 500 screenshots surfaced, which showed Zach sexting a girl, beginning when she was just 14 years old, while he was already a whopping 24 years old, a full decade older. At the start of their interactions, he began doing roleplays with her, and in one of these abhorrent sessions, which I'll spare you the details of, he said, "It's just so exciting knowing you're barely legal." After many such exchanges, he whipped out some textbook grooming language to try to escalate things beyond just role-playing as each other's character, and into a personal relationship with her. Well, here's the thing, I'm not asking to be in a relationship with you. When I said go further, I mean a step further than just role-playing and teasing, because you are too young to start a relationship. However, I want to explore those other kinds of feelings. More so on the romantic side. Do you get what I'm saying? I want you to know this is all okay, and I want to help you understand all of this, but only if you want to go a little further. He said other things along these lines, continuing to acknowledge just how young she was in comparison to him, though continuously not taking it seriously in consideration, disregarding even her hesitation about it. Zach, is it weird that I'm attracted to you? Girl, like in what way, if I may ask? Zach, okay, like, attracted in the mental and emotional sense. Girl, hey, I'm flattered really. It's just that, for one thing, the 10-year difference, man, XD, and just, I think you're a really great friend. Zach, yeah, 10-year difference, XD. He then tried to arrange a way to meet with her in the real world, showing just how sick his true intentions were. Girl, also a random little thing I also realized, if you're serious about what we can get away with, if I was ever able to meet you in real life via con or any other visit, you'd technically take my first kiss in that regard. Zach, oh, how so? Girl, well, I do remember you saying that you wanted to do something like that some time ago, if it's ever possible for me to go to a con, which I'm praying for at this point, XD, and me being completely alright with it. Don't think I'd forget that kind of stuff, XD. Zach, fair enough. I think it'd be pretty interesting having you all to myself in a hotel room. Girl, I must admit that you're making me morbidly curious on what you would do if that scenario were to come. Zach, do you actually want to know? Imagine the roleplays we've done. He also tried to solicit CP from her in a roundabout way by asking her to try underwear modeling. Zach, would you ever consider modeling? Girl, funny enough, you're not the first person who has said that to me, XD. Zach, I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable before. Girl, you didn't? Don't worry, man. I didn't feel uncomfortable at any point. What makes you say that? Zach, about the curiosity of modeling in underwear. Girl, oh, don't worry. I know you didn't have any ill intent. I trust you like that. Unless you did have actual ill intent. Zach, of course not. I think it would be interesting to see you try that. Private, I mean. Girl, I don't know if I'll pull it off personally. I think I'll just stick with what I'm confident with wearing for now. Zach, life's all about taking chances. You'd have nothing to lose. You already have the curves. In the same conversation, he comments on her physical features, and you can probably guess the gist of what was said. But in December 2017, he supposedly realized what he was doing was wrong. After 13 months of grooming this girl, he claims he came to his senses, though it's more than likely he was exclusively worried about getting caught. Girl, oh, so you were uncomfortable with what we've been doing previously? Zach, no, I just want to take a break from it. Something didn't feel quite right. Girl, I'm curious what you mean by that, but if you don't want to tell me, I won't pry. Zach, up until recently, I thought this was just for fun, but then I realized I'm doing this with a 15-year-old. Yeah, I gave one of my friends flack for doing this exact same thing. When all of this came to light, the other bronies in the community who he had been collaborating with confronted him. In January 2018, they had a 35-minute Skype call in which he admitted to the accusations levied against him. Not only that, he claims he has done worse things than this.
We know that we have a lot of solid evidence and concrete proof that you are, or at least what you have done, is pedophilia. You have asked for photos of her in nothing but a leather jacket and panties. You have sent her pictures of your crotch only covered in boxes. You've sent her porn. You've done a lot of bad things, Zach.
There have been times where I admit I have done things that are probably worse than this. In fact, I can safely say that this is one of the worst things that I've ever done. But there have been worser.
Zach also admits to grooming another underage girl years prior to this incident, and that, in that case, the police got involved.
Wait a minute. Hello?
Hey, Zach.
Hey, Zach.
Okay, what's going on here? Like, can anyone tell me what's going on?
Okay.
Yes.
So,
British.
do you want me to begin?
Yeah, you gotta begin.
Okay, so Toon, we're going to preface all of this with you're in trouble. And this is going to be, a group talk so that we can discuss what we think you need to do and give you a chance to defend yourself. Essentially, we know everything that you've been doing with Pastel over the last year, since November of 2016.
Okay.
And whether you meant to or not, or thought you could get away with it?
I wasn't what? No. Why that? First off, you guys know me. That's not the type of person that I am. That's not the type of person that I am. You've known me for years. That's not the case. I admit, yes, I've done some pretty stupid things, and yes, this is probably the stupidest thing I've ever done. But people should know me well enough to know that I don't do this kind of stuff with intention to hurt.
That's not the point.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions, Zach. These people are your family. They've helped you through so much. And you took a giant shit on them.
I wasn't trying to do that.
I know.
But that's the thing. But the fact remains, Zach, that you did it, and you have, and what this all is just.
Yeah.
We're at this point we're just repeating ourselves, but you need to face the music, all right?
We've told you everything we're going to tell you, essentially. It's up to you now, really. You have 24 hours. You can go to the police, or you can do whatever the hell you want. Quite frankly, I don't care.
Despite this, it seems that no legal action was taken against Zach, unfortunately. Over the course of the Skype call, Zach didn't do much to defend himself, and admitted he was wrong, but he tried to downplay his actions by claiming he was in a bad place and pretending he regretted having groomed multiple minors, though he probably only regretted being caught.
There are no excuses. I'm not going to do much really other than say I was in a bad place and I made bad decisions. I'm really fucking sorry about all this. I got involved in the wrong type of thing. I really screwed up on that part.
Saying you're sorry isn't enough. You have to say you're really sorry. It's actually in the Constitution that if you say that and make puppy eyes and touch the tips of your indexes together like Hinata, the cops have to let you go on the spot. It's like the secret menu, but for getting away with grooming. To close off the interaction, his now former friends gave him 24 hours to turn himself in and leave the community of his own volition. However, after the 24-hour period, they would still give all the information to the police themselves as well. He didn't seem too distraught about all this until he realized his career as professional Brony web celebrity was essentially over. This is because it's widely accepted that Zach's work as Toon Critic Y2K wasn't very good, and the numbers we went over before from the few archives that exist reflects that fact. Toon's career depended on his relationships with those around him, collaborating with bigger creators, and riding on the coattails of their success. Now that they were not only disavowing him, but trying to get him arrested, we knew his stint of horse fame had met its well overdue demise. At some point in the next few days, the call would be leaked. The story would go public on the Brony drama news site Horse News on the 24th of February, and the call would be leaked on the 26th. Further details would only make the situation worse, such as screenshots of Zach defending pedophilia on Skype, despite the fact that he said he wasn't trying to make excuses for what he did during the call. He wrote, "I will say this. These screen caps, if you have seen them, are not fake. I believe this whole entire story is being twisted in a way to make me look bad. Age of consent laws in the Philippines are 12 from what I was told."
I've learned that really trying to explain things doesn't really change much because people will just think it's an excuse, and I'm not really going to try to make any excuses because there is no excuse. What else am I really supposed to say here? Like,
I honestly don't know.
If the story was twisted, it sure didn't take a lot of twisting after all, considering he brought up the age of consent being 12 in the Philippines as if it justified what he did. One of the worst cases of CP ever documented came from the Philippines. How would that be a good thing? He literally said it's not pedophilia if he has Filipino boy swag. I wouldn't have been surprised if he pulled a Goodfellas and said he was a maid brony, and they weren't. By the way, they recently raised the age of consent in the Philippines to 16, so what he did would still be illegal, even if he lived there, which it seems he thought would be ideal. Meanwhile, his Skype profile blatantly displays that he lives in Illinois, where the age of consent is 17. His interactions with this girl, dubbed Sally, were the main focus at first. But shortly after, another girl dubbed Abby would come out with screenshots showcasing the exact same behavior from Toon, claiming he wasn't going to creep on this girl, then launching straight into sexual roleplays. Toon's group of close friends who were working on taking him down apparently didn't even know about this other victim until her information went public. Because of how extensive his crimes were, attention was also drawn towards Toon's now former friend group, and many claimed they were responsible for letting him get away with this pattern of behavior for years. During the confrontation call, people felt they were being too nice to a pedophile whose crimes had already been confirmed. The most notable creators voicing these opinions were Lily Pete and the previously mentioned Vita.
Josh and Ninja are the ones who speak to Zach the most, and you can see two very different approaches from both of them. British Ninja is a total boss and is simply not having any of Zach's shit. While he lets Zach explain his actions, it's clear that the explanation is merely a courtesy, and he has no intention of believing him. He calmly and rationally explains to Toon exactly what's going to happen as a result of his behavior. Meanwhile, Josh is constantly apologizing, repeating how much he doesn't want to do this, and talking about how big of a bone they're trying to throw Zach in spite of all of this, and treating him with the biggest kid gloves he possibly can.
In fact, many Brony content creators would release videos giving their thoughts on the situation, a good portion of them being Zach's former friends disavowing him. One of these videos was by Josh Scorcher, who is one of the main figures confronting Toon on Skype. In the video, Josh explains what happened and responds to criticisms of his handling of the controversy. He explains that they tried keeping this story silent at first for multiple reasons. One being that they didn't want Toon to know what they were up to and start preemptively building up allies to take his side. Instead, they wanted to slowly turn everyone against him.
As people shared their testimony, it came to light that Toon would likely try to find people sympathetic to him to get his side of the story and try to frame himself as a victim. We realized we had to get to everyone else first, so we kept it silent until his closest friends, associates, and colleagues knew about it. We weren't going to let him try to talk to people to smooth things over and jeopardize everything. In the end, we were successful to the point where the only people who would claim his innocence were his family.
Josh claims this was a success, as the only people close to Toon who took his side were his family, who actually called the other creators and asked them to be nice to him.
I know some people who were still physically ill when the video was leaked, and the stress caused them to get worse and to hurt more. Then, some of us were bombarded with accusations, insults, and anger when we were hurt too, and we were still healing. Several people who were on the verge of completely healing are back to square one because they're being accused of things that they aren't responsible for.
There were some other reasons too. They didn't want the victim's name to be out there and forever attached to this scandal. They also wanted to get these stories straight beforehand to make sure misinformation and gossip didn't spread, to get police reports ready, and to not interfere with a criminal investigation. Despite this, there were still concerns as, regardless of what was planned regarding Zach's criminality, it does not seem that he's facing charges. A lot of people were angry at Josh and fellow creator Dr. Wolf, specifically for talking about forgiveness regarding Toon. But Josh said it was all just a misunderstanding.
Believe it or not, I've seen nearly every video and read almost every comment disparaging me and my associates for how the situation was handled. Dr. Wolf recently put out a video concerning forgiveness, and understandably, quite a sizable number of people got angry with it. There was a dramatic failure to communicate about what we meant when we said forgiveness, and we take full responsibility for it.
According to him, they meant it in a Christian sense. They wanted Zach to face consequences, however, they didn't also want him to be treated with cruelty, and were talking about letting go of anger, as they were also trying to help victims and former friends heal regarding what happened. There was one creator trying to make it in the Brony analysis community, named Performance Major, who did take Toon's side, but unsurprisingly, while defending him, also admitted to doing erotic roleplay with anyone, including minors.
I roleplay with just about anyone who's willing. And sometimes, if the minor is mature enough, I'll roleplay with them too. But here's the fucking thing. It's roleplay. It doesn't mean anything.
Other brilliant quotes from Mr. Major include, "He's only breaking the law because he is above 18, and she's just as guilty." Zach would try to crawl back online a few times over the years under new aliases, seemingly unable to keep himself away from the allure of the Brony fandom and new potential victims. One of these attempts was in 2019 under the name Mucha Lucha, in which he tried to get involved with the Pokemon community, which is also ripe with minors for grooming. That same year, in 2019, he gave a short interview to the creator for no good reason, wherein he claimed to be seeing a psychiatrist. But in 2020, he popped up again under the name Abri72 or Zephyr the Indie Doggo. A lot of Twitch VODs are still up from this era of Zach's online life, where you can clearly tell it's him. This comeback attempt would also be picked up by commentators, given that the original ordeal drew hundreds of thousands of eyes across various videos. The Abree's Twitter account will be deactivated after people realized the account owner was none other than Zach. The Twitch account still remains, although it's been inactive for 2 years. As to where Zach is nowadays, I have no idea, but it is a little irritating that the answer to that question isn't a definitive behind bars, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Bronies had a thriving content creation scene back between 2011 to 2014, with one very popular creator being Mando Pony, or Andy Stein, who created mainly rock music, thematically centered around the show and the fandom. While his Brony music wouldn't reach the level of popularity as creators like the Living Tombstones music did, his popularity in the Brony community was nothing to write off. He started off with chiptune music themed around the show, a genre of music which emulates the style of old video game music that was made with the 8 and 16-bit sound chips. It's later on that he would create his popular rock songs, the most notable one being Loyalty, which has 2 million views.
Give me a dash of loyalty.
Let this be a lesson about being careful with passing your homies the aux cord because they might play My Little Pony Rock. Unlike a lot of Brony creators, who just got popular doing pony content and then faded into obscurity, Mando Pony's career would actually peak outside of the Brony space. When the video game franchise Five Nights at Freddy's took off, he would be sure to capitalize on it, and it paid off, because his song Survive the Night has been played over 40 million times on YouTube. He would also find some decent success by crossing over into other fandoms, although he had clearly peaked and would probably never hit that level of success ever again, because that's just how being a creator goes sometimes. You would think he would rest on his laurels and silently fade into obscurity, but he did not get the privilege of having a peaceful end and being remembered fondly. In July 2020, a Twitter account called Exposing Andy Stein was created. This account started making threads containing screenshots showcasing Andy sexting minors on Snapchat. To make matters worse, he was also married while he was doing this, so according to the allegations, not only was he a predator, but an adulterous one at that. Unfortunately, a lot of this information was not well archived. This Twitter account appears to have once contained all of the allegations and evidence against Andy, but it no longer exists. The most important pieces of information are still out there though, able to be dug up. The main victim that was highlighted by the account, age 17, had definitive proof the messages were from Andy, because, well, they had nude pictures of him. The allegations about him sexting the 17-year-old girl would be the most widely spread, since he sent messages that would suggest he knew her age, and that he thought what he was doing was wrong. He said, "I've been meaning to say, yeah, thank you for keeping all of this private. It's probably wrong of me to be attracted to you, but I can't help it. Just as long as it's kept quiet and you're comfortable, is that okay? And it won't progress beyond just flirts or lewd moments, lol. XD. What's with these people and saying XD after making the most incriminating and weird statements known to man? Things would only get worse for Andy from here though, because others started claiming to have had inappropriate conversations with him on Snapchat. One claiming to be as young as 14. On Twitter, she made the following statement. "This was the Snapchat that Andy Stein gave me, and the account he used to send nudes on. I was 14, homeless, scared, and lost, and you took advantage of you being my idol, telling me not to tell anyone." Going through this person's Twitter, you can can see they were a fan of Andy, and Andy actually liked one of their tweets. They also provide screenshots of DMs between them and Andy, although there appears to be no proof of any sexual conversation, as they claim it was all deleted. A TikTok was made where user Emily Really Likes Cows shows old conversations she had with him when she was 13, claiming he was the one reaching out to her a lot. But in her case, nothing sexual seemed to have happened either. There's also a screenshot on Snapchat of him supposedly calling a 13-year-old cute, and some allegations of him flirting with a 15-year-old on Instagram, including him drawing lewd artwork of them and a collaborator of his, Nate Wants to Battle. The Exposing Andy Stein Twitter account posted some of Andy's art, 3 of them including the 15-year-old victim. The last image includes him, the girl, and Nathan Sharp as furries on stage with Nate, daring the girl to kiss him. And no, Nate did not consent to this drawing. Nate, who Andy had previously toured with, would silently remove songs I did together from his channel during this time. But these allegations did not spread nearly as far as the Toon Critic Y2K ones, and this could be due to a few factors, such as the fact that, although the other alleged victims were much younger, the main accuser was 17. Another reason this case might not have blown up like Toon's was because Andy didn't respond for about a year, and instead, silently locked down all of his social media accounts. Around this time, he also disabled comments and likes or dislikes on all of his videos, and the last tweet he made before he was exposed was foreboding. After speaking with my therapist, psychiatrist, and more, I am stepping away from social media and any spotlight. I am not well. I am seeking help. My family and friends are supporting me. Until I am healthy, I wish you all peace and joy. Thank you. Andy would remain quiet until March 9th, 2021, when he would go on Twitter to post a statement from himself and his legal team. In this statement, he claims he was investigated by the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force in coordination with the LAPD. Their months-long investigation apparently turned up nothing, and they found no evidence of any crime. Thus, he said the allegations were false, but that he would still be stepping away regardless. He stated, "I do now understand, however, that some of my fan interaction may have been insensitive or too personal, and that some of my comments made others feel in ways I never intended. I am ashamed and extremely regretful to have put my family, and those I love, in the position to question my integrity. I do not deny I failed my wife, my family, my friends, and my supporters, but I am not a criminal." It's unclear what exactly happened here, since Andy was definitely sexting someone, but without the details of the investigation, we may never truly know. A few months later, in October of that year, he would release a new song called Trick or Treatin'. The comments are still turned off, and it didn't even crack 100,000 views. In July of 2022, he would release a cover of Come On Out from Disney's Zombies 3, which performed even worse than the previous song. On August 22nd, 2022, Mando Pony would respond again to the allegations. In a new post, he claimed a second investigation was confirmed and that they found nothing. He ended his response by asking people to not believe everything they read online. At the time of writing this, Andy is still active online, but his Instagram is still private, and he's largely inactive on Twitter. Will he make a full-fledged comeback? Will his reputation recover? For now, no one knows for sure. Every April Fool's Day, 4chan does something special. In 2021, they added a rake icon to posts so that you could report someone just for being a leaf, also known as being Canadian. Some of their April Fool's gags have been site redesigns, like in 2016 when they overhauled the UI to look like Google+. But in 2017, they pulled off a particularly entertaining and strange gag. That is, an experiment to merge 2 of the most prominent boards into one. Various proposals were dreamt up, but the most intriguing was ML Poll, combining /MLP and /poll, the politically incorrect board, which definitely does its name justice, as its options for flags you can post under include Black Nationalist, Fascist, and of course the swastika. No one in their right mind would expect this to go smoothly, and that was probably the point. You could safely assume that bronies would tend to be progressive, given their eccentric tastes. And you would also expect the Anons on /poll to staunchly reject the sexually liberated, furry, and LGBT pastimes of the bronies. There were some other even more catastrophic implications of the merge though. You see, 4chan divides boards into safe for work and not safe for work categories, dictating whether adult material is allowed on the board. /poll falls in the not safe for work category, but /MLP doesn't, by some miracle, though it probably should. Usually, explicit material isn't allowed on there, but with the 2 boards coming together, it meant that the bronies with more salacious interests would no longer have to hold back, and as such, the floodgates were opened. This was 2017, the year that Trump entered the presidency, and the same year of he he will not divide us. Poll was getting an amount of online traction it had never seen, and hasn't since. This meant that you had droves of conservatives going to Poll for their daily intake of political info, being met with Twilight Sparkle Rule 34 in every post of every page. Once the pony porn posting died down though, the unexpected happened. These neckbeards, despite their vastly different locations, started finding common ground. OP, who would Hitler's favorite brony be? Reply, probably Pinky because he was fond of confections and would have admired her positive attitude. Maybe these pony weirdos aren't as bad as Democrats at least. I want this to continue forever. Someone even posted a comic of Twilight Sparkle forgiving Hitler. It reads, sure, he made the wrong choice, but he made it for the right reasons. He was trying to help his friends. We've all done something silly for a friend, right? Gotta say, this is the first time I've heard someone describe the Holocaust as silly. And of course, plenty of people took the occasion to post Ariane, a National Socialist pony character bearing a heart with a swastika in it, whose name is a nod to the word Aryan. You know, sometimes you've been online for long enough and you think you've seen it all. And every once in a while you're reminded, no, you never will. It dawned on the Poltards and Bronies alike that the magic spell uniting them would wear off once the clock struck midnight. This was only supposed to be a one-time thing as an April Fool's gag. But they weren't having it. They attempted, in vain, to make the board an official staple of 4chan. Someone even created a Declaration of Independence for the board called the Policies of Polestria, a portmanteau of Pol and Equestria, the mythical land of ponies, including rules like no race mixing. But their efforts were in vain, because even a site like 4chan wasn't actually willing to host this schizophrenic Frankenstein's monster of a subculture beyond the scope of a mere April Fool's joke. As a result, Anons flooded other boards to complain about what had been taken from them. I'm so upset right now, they took away the one board that actually drove away the Redditors and shills. It was going to be a glorious place where we could actually talk about politics without autistically screeching and shitposting. I saw multiple threads where people were actually giving their honest opinions on the state of the world. You know, talking about real politics. Having actual quality debates. No bait, no trolling, not even any real animosity, even to differing beliefs. Just civil discussion. It was glorious. And now, it's gone. For the first time in years, we could have real political discussions on the hidden board without all the garbage. We all loved ML Poll and didn't want it to get deleted. You can't just give us a taste of heaven only to rip it away from us like that. Real OC was being pumped out left and right. We were all having tons of fun. It was like the old days again. And you're just going to do us like that? This is the internet's version of the Christmas truce in World War I, where soldiers on both sides unofficially ceased fire and played soccer. You could make a TED Talk about how heartwarming the whole event was, as it truly proved that people can come together against all odds, just as long as they are equally deranged to some capacity. What's particularly surprising is that right-wing bronies already existed prior to this event, perhaps the most infamous example being My Nationalist Pony, a Tumblr blog which was started by Buttercup Dew within a few years of the show's launch, the writings from which were eventually published as a book. The description of the book reads, "The cartoon series My Little Pony is beloved of little girls and grown men alike. In My Nationalist Pony, brony blogger Buttercup Dew gives a new rightist reading to My Little Pony, arguing that in addition to its wholesome stories of friendship and self-acceptance, the series is implicitly Eurocentric, pagan, and deeply conservative. The premise is that the world of My Little Pony is an idyllic utopia because the ponies are racially homogenous and resist the influence of foreign cultures, remaining genetically superior." I don't really... What am I supposed to say about this, okay? What am I supposed to say? Without purchasing the book, I'm unable to access his fascinating hypotheses. However, he was interviewed by countercurrents.com and expounded upon his theories about the show. Nearly every single element of the show is an analogy for a piece of the traditional or classical West, and the universe of the show functions according to a sort of friendship-based European ethnocentrism. If you watch a random episode of the show, you are guaranteed to find at least one level of implicit whiteness in traditional Occidental civilization. The show's characters and the conflicts they go through reflects the ideal of personal destiny as manifesting unique and indispensable racial biology, with the context of a wider, traditional, ethnocentric European society with its own racial folk religion, celebrations, political conflicts, and phobias. He's using too many syllables for me to be able to understand, considering I'm barely literate, so I won't read any more of his PhD dissertation on why Adolf would have been a brony. To top it off, in this interview he calls himself a flaming homo, and he says he goes to gay bars. I wonder if he told the men he was flirting with about his MLP headcanon, where Rainbow Dash was a high-ranking member of the SS. Believe it or not, this guy wasn't as much of an exception to the rule as you'd think. Several articles have been written by publications like The Atlantic, Rolling Stone, and the New York Post about the Nazi problem in the Brony community, what with the abundance of racist fan art floating around, especially during the BLM protests. A particularly wild incident related to this was a mass shooting of all things. In 2021, a 19-year-old shot up a FedEx building in Indianapolis, killing 8 people before taking his own life. A Rolling Stone article about the tragedy wrote, according to the Wall Street Journal, which cited internal memos circulated by Facebook in the wake of the attack, the gunman primarily used his Facebook accounts to discuss his love for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, a children's cartoon featuring magical ponies. Male fans of the show are often referred to as bronies. Though the memo was quick to state that there was no indication that brony culture played a role in the attack, the gunman posted about his love of a tawny pony named Applejack, one of the main characters of the franchise, less than an hour before the rampage. I hope that I can be with Applejack in the afterlife. My life has no meaning without her, he wrote. If there's no afterlife and she isn't real, then my life never mattered anyway. The gunman also reportedly had a history of posting far-right content, such as a meme suggesting Jesus had been reincarnated as Hitler, the memo stated. If you think that's twisted, the Buffalo shooter looked at Martha Speaks furry hentai on his phone mere minutes before he committed his racially motivated mass murder. I can't tell which is more disgraceful. In fact, the furry community also has a subset of Nazis among them. Rocky Mountain FurCon was canceled in 2017 for this exact reason, because they didn't feel it would be safe to host it with certain prominent attendees espousing those beliefs, despite being the minority. Considering the furry and brony communities have significant overlap because of their similar proclivities, as peculiar as it is, it makes sense that both would have these issues. What is it with people who are very invested in politics being obsessed with horses? Can we get some studies on that anytime soon? Definitely gonna need to direct some taxpayer money towards that kind of research. Meanwhile, someone needs to start notifying stables about these dangerous equine predators. The brony fandom is one of the strangest out there. My Little Pony is a franchise with an intended demographic of pretty much anyone besides grown men, and yet, they've rallied around it for a decade and are still going strong. What started as just a bit of irony on 4chan spiraled out of control into one of the biggest fandoms of the early 2010s, in the process accomplishing the unimaginable, getting everyone from teenage boys to middle-aged dads to wait with bated breath to watch a show about horses, rainbows, and the importance of friendship. It'd be so impressive if it weren't so horrifying. As with any community, there are always a few bad apples in the bunch. Predators can easily use an interest that appeals to kids like this one to take advantage of them, and there's probably a lot more plain old zoophiles or cloppers that we didn't get into. To give you an idea, ponies from MLP have some of the most Rule 34 drawn out of any fictional characters of all time. What an unfortunate metric to be at the top 1% of. This gives you a little bit of an idea of how actually bad the over-sexualization problem is in the brony community. Hopefully, this is one of those trends that dies off once new source material is no longer being produced, since the show has long since finished airing. Though the MLP fandom is so obsessive, it's not beyond them to come up with their own entries to the universe. Or who knows, maybe Hasbro thinks the 2020s aren't abominable enough as is, and they decide to launch a new generation of My Little Pony products to appeal to disillusioned young men. I've been Turkey Tom, thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.
Times before, and it's just not that far.